Have you ever felt it, that feeling of being trapped by your own yes? That little bit of resentment that starts to bubble up after you agree to do something you really didn't want to do? Well, that's a classic sign of a boundary problem. And in this explainer, we're going to dive into the work of psychologists Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend to break down what personal boundaries are and, more importantly, how they can help you take back control of your life. So let me tell you about Sherry. This thought was just eating her up. She's a great employee, always dependable. But her boss, Jeff, just dropped this absolutely massive last-minute project right in her lap. Inside, she knew it was unfair. She was furious, she was resentful. But when he asked, all she could manage to say was, "Sure, it's no problem at all." Sound familiar? I bet it does. That feeling when you say yes, but your entire gut is just screaming no. You end up feeling powerless, maybe a little used, and kind of mad at yourself for not speaking up. Sherry's problem is a perfect example of a boundary issue, and it's something so many of us run into all the time. So, what's really at the heart of this feeling? That sense of being completely overwhelmed? Well, it often comes from a simple misunderstanding of who is responsible for what. We end up taking on problems that aren't even ours, which leaves us totally drained and honestly gives the other person no reason to ever change. Okay, check out this story. It just nails the problem. A couple goes to see a counselor. They want him to fix their 25-year-old son, Bill. See, Bill's got some drug issues, he can't seem to hold down a job, and he's living at home, completely rent-free. But here's the wild part. Bill isn't even at the session. Why not? Because he doesn't think he has a problem. And the counselor's response is just, wow. He tells the parents, you know what? He's right. He doesn't have a problem. You do. See, his parents have taken on all of his problems for him. They pay his way, they do all the worrying, they soak up every single negative consequence of his choices. He has zero incentive to grow up because his bad behavior isn't causing him any pain. It's causing them pain. So how do you even begin to fix something like that? Well, the counselor introduces this really simple but incredibly powerful idea. He tells them to think of personal boundaries as property lines. This is the whole key to figuring out what's your business and what isn't. Put simply, a boundary is like a fence around your yard. It makes it super clear who owns what. It shows you what you're supposed to take care of and what belongs to your neighbor. It's that invisible line that separates your feelings, your choices, and your life from everybody else's. Now, when you don't have clear boundaries, it's kind of like your sprinkler system is pointed at your neighbor's yard instead of your own. You're pouring all your resources, your time, your energy, your money into solving their problems. And meanwhile, your own lawn is turning brown and dying from neglect. So what's actually in your yard? What are we talking about here? We're talking about these things, your feelings. They're yours to own. Your choices, yours to make. And yeah, the consequences that come with them are yours to bear too. Your beliefs, your talents, your thoughts, your desires, all of that is your property. You're in charge of it, and you're the one responsible for making it grow. A lot of us never really learned how to maintain these property lines, often because of how we were raised. And when that happens, we can develop some pretty clear patterns of boundary problems. So let's look at a few of the most common types. All right, so on the passive side of things, you've got the compliant. That's our friend Sherry, right? They just can't bring themselves to say no, usually because they're afraid of letting someone down or rocking the boat. Then you've got the flip side, the avoidant. Their problem isn't saying no to bad things, it's saying yes to good things. They build these huge walls, not fences, and can't let anyone in to help, even when they really need it. Now, let's look at the more active side, the controllers. First, there's the aggressive controller. This person is like a tank, just rolling right through your yard. They don't care about your boundaries, they just expect a yes. Then you've got the more subtle one, the manipulative controller. They won't use a tank, they'll use guilt or charm or some clever argument to talk you out of your no and make you feel bad for even having one. Okay, let's talk about the big one, probably the number one reason we all struggle to set boundaries. It's that nagging little voice in your head that whispers, "You're being selfish." This is such a powerful myth, and it keeps millions of us trapped and resentful. So, to really see why this is just a myth, let's do a little thought experiment with a story we all know, the Good Samaritan. We think of him as this amazing, compassionate guy. But what if he was a compliant person, totally unable to set limits? So, in this version, the Samaritan does his thing. He bandages up the injured man, gets him to safety, and then he says he has to leave. But the injured man lays on the guilt, thick. He starts calling him selfish, saying he's not a real Christian, trying to manipulate him into staying longer, even though the Samaritan has his own important business to get to. And here's what happens. A few days later, the Samaritan has missed his business deal and lost a ton of money. Is he feeling compassionate anymore? No way. He is furious. He starts screaming at the man he helped, blaming him for all his problems. By giving in to guilt, he totally destroyed his own ability to give out of real love. And this story gets to the absolute core of it all. When your heart is saying no, but your mouth says yes, you're not actually giving freely. You're just complying out of guilt or fear. And that forced yes will always, always curdle into resentment. This is the key takeaway. Real generosity, real love, can only come from a place of freedom. It requires you to be able to say no, so that when you say yes, it actually means something. Okay, so we get the problem, we've busted the selfish myth. Now for the real question. How do we actually start fixing our sprinklers and taking care of our own lawns? How do we start taking back control? Well, it all begins with a little shift in how we think about responsibility. This right here, this might be the most important distinction you can ever make. We are responsible to others. We're supposed to love them, be kind, help them out, but we are not responsible for them. You can't feel their feelings for them, you can't make their choices for them, you can't live their lines for them. That's their property. And that leads to a pretty clear path forward. First, stop trying to change other people. You only have power over yourself. Second, take ownership of your own choices. So stop blaming your boss for overworking you and start owning the fact that you need to set a limit. Third, communicate those boundaries. Let people know clearly and respectfully what you will and won't do. And finally, number 4, this is so important, respect other people's freedom to have their own boundaries. It's a two-way street. Ultimately, taking control of your life really boils down to this one question. It's having the courage to change the things that are inside your property lines, the serenity to accept the things that are outside of them, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that wisdom? Well, that is the incredible power of boundaries.